And welcome to Technology Tap. I'm Professor J. Rod. In this episode, Building the Defense, Infrastructure Security for the Real World. Let's tap in. Welcome back to Technology Tap, the show where technology meets storytelling and security beats common sense. Today, we're talking infrastructure security, the locks, gates, and guards of the digital world. When people think cybersecurity, they picture passwords, antivirus, and firewalls. But true protection begins deep inside the infrastructure, the switches, the routers, servers, and devices that make up the nervous system of your network. Let's start by walking into two places, a small local bookstore and a global bank's data center. Both rely on infrastructure security, but they fight very different battles. Switches, the network traffic directors. A network switch connects devices on a local network and learns which device sits on which port by examining MAC address. When hardened properly, it enforces port security, limiting how many MAC addresses can appear on a single port. Real-world example. At a small bookstore, the point-of-sale systems and the receipt printers share one switch. A visiting technician plugs in a laptop, unknowingly flooding the switch with fake MAC address. A MAC flooding attack. The fix: enable port security. Only known devices can connect. At the enterprise level, switches segment entire departments into VLANs, separating accounts from HR and research from guests. If one segment is compromised, others remain untouched. Routers, the gatekeepers between networks. A router forwards packets between networks and also acts as a filter using access control list. Routers prevent IP spoofing when a malicious device pretends to have another computer's IP address. Example: a home-based freelancer's router logs attempts from strange IPs claiming to be local. That's anti-spoofing in action. In a corporate environment, routers enforce routing policies, VPN tunnels, and DDoS protections, ensuring that internal traffic never leaks out where it shouldn't. Servers, the workhorses. A server delivers resources and services. Hardening a server means applying patches regularly, monitor for anomalies, control permissions, remove unnecessary software, and secure the location physically. At a community college, a file server sits in an unlocked office. A student accidentally disconnects it. Lesson learned: infrastructure security starts with a locked door. Load balancers, distributing the load. A load balancer evenly distributes requests across multiple servers. It can detect and stop protocol attacks, hide error pages, and mask real server IDs. For a regional hospital, load balancers keep electronic health record servers running even if one node fails. Infrastructure security hardware. Firewalls, digital gatekeepers. A firewall inspects traffic and decides what to allow or what to block. There are two main philosophies. Rule-based firewalls rely on an explicit allow-deny list, and policy-based firewalls use higher-level statements like block all social media sites for guest users. Example: a local high school district blocks TikTok from students' Wi-Fi. That's a policy-based filtering in action. Enterprise networks deploy next-generation firewall capable of deep packet inspection, content URL filtering, and application awareness. Proxy servers. A proxy acts as a middleman. A forward proxy intercepts outbound requests from the user. A reverse proxy handles inbound requests from the internet and routes them to internal servers. Example: a city library uses a forward proxy to block gambling sites. An e-commerce company uses a reverse proxy to hide its internal web servers behind a single secure gateway. Deception technologies. Enter honeypots, honey nets, and sinkholes. Systems designed to attract attackers. A honeypot might mimic a login portal. A sinkhole redirects malicious traffic to a safe void. A small ISP sets up a honeypot that catches repeated SSH brute force attempts. Analysts study these IPs to block future attacks. A large defense contractor uses a honey net, multiple decoy systems, to gather intelligence on attacker behavior. IDS and IPS. An intrusion detection system monitors traffic and raises alert. An intrusion prevention system actively blocks attacks. Network versions are called NIDS and NIPS. Inline systems act in real time. Passive systems analyze copies of traffic. Small firm example. A bakery's IDS send message alerts about port scans. Enterprise example. NIPS at a bank's perimeter automatically drops packets for unknown malicious address. The thing is about IDS and IPS, IDS will let you know something's going on, but they won't do anything about it. And IPS will. IPS does something about it. Hardware defenses like layers of a medieval castle, walls, gates, and watchtowers, but without smart software and good design, even a castle can fail. Web and DNS filtering. Web filtering monitors what websites users visit and blocks unsafe or inappropriate ones. Methods include browser scanning, agent-based proxy, and cloud scanning. Filtering uses content categorization, URL scanning, and reputational score. DNS filtering blocks malicious domains entirely by refusing to resolve them. A small clinic uses DNS filtering to block known phishing domains. A Fortune 500 company uses global DNS reputation feeds. File integrity monitoring, or FIM. FIM watches files for unauthorized changes. Problem: too much noise. The trick is tuning, monitoring only critical system files. Example: a payroll service configurations changes trigger alerts to the system on a chip. Extended detection and response. While endpoint detection and response focus on endpoints, XDR correlates data across endpoint servers, cloud storage, and emails. A manufacturer firm uses XDR to link a suspicious email attachment with later PowerShell activity, stopping a ransomware chain. Segmentations. Networks are divided physically and logically. Logical segmentation creates subnets, often through virtual LANs or VLANs. If marketing laptops catch malware, VLAN can keep it from reaching financial servers. At a small business, VLAN separates guest Wi-Fi from internal printers. At a global bank, segmentation enforces compliance. Credit card systems isolated under PCI DSS. One thing about VLANs, I'll give you a short example of a VLAN. So, for example, when I was a high school teacher, we had computers in a classroom, and when we first got them, they wanted, of course, we wanted internet access, right, to teach the kids, how to use the internet, how to get on, how to fix it, using all the tools that we had online. But my boss was like, hey, why don't you just get Verizon, put a router in the back of the classroom, and then that's your internet. But I was worried because it's a high school, and, in the class was mostly boys, that they were going to inappropriate websites, and I would be responsible for that. So I said, let's do a VLAN. Let's get the company who's in charge of the infrastructure come in and create a VLAN for that room. We were different IP addresses from the rest of the school. The schools were using the private IP address with the 10s, and we were in that classroom 192.168. So anything that we did in that classroom would not affect anybody else. We can crash the system in that classroom and nothing will happen to everybody else. So that actually worked out good. And it was like a one-time payment. I think it was $600 for them to come and do it, rather than paying Verizon every month. And because all the traffic went out of the same router, the router is where all the restrictions were at. So, it was still going out of the same router. So I had no issues trying to configure security because it was just the same security as before. That's what a VLAN does. Physically, you're in the same location, but logically, you're separate networks. Demilitarized zone. A DMZ is a semi-trusted zone between the internet and secure networks. Web servers live here, accessible to outsiders but separated by firewalls. A jump server inside the DMZ allows admin control access into the secure zone. Example, a university hosts public websites and emails in a DMZ. Internal grade database stay behind another firewall. Zero trust architecture. Zero trust flips the old mindset. It assumes compromise has already happened. Motto, never trust, always verify. Core components, policy engines decide if access is allowed. Policy enforcement point executes that decision. Policy automation applies consistent rules. Control plane data plane separates decision logic from data transfer. A small MSP adopts zero trust by requiring MFA for every login, even internal. A multinational company uses a full ZTA platform verifying every API call and user token. Zero trust isn't about paranoia. It's about precision. It treats access like oxygen. You can only breathe what you need. VPN. A VPN lets remote users connect securely over the internet, as if they were inside the private network. Two types is remote access VPN for individual users and site-to-site VPN connecting offices. The protocols they use is IPsec, SSL, and L2TP IPsec, since L2TP alone lacks encryption. For example, a traveling salesman logs into HQ using SSL VPN through a browser portal. An enterprise uses site-to-site IPsec tunnels linking New York, London, and Tokyo. NAC, Network Access Control. NAC checks a device health before letting it on the network. If it fails, i.e., no antivirus, it gets quarantined. Some NACs use agents, others integrate with Active Directory. Small example, a high school's Wi-Fi NAC blocks unpatched students' laptops. Enterprise, a hospital's NAC enforces HIPAA compliance before device access patient data. So if you have, they do this a lot in if you work from home and you're using your own device to log into your company. And usually it's a fileless, what they call a fileless VPN, where you just go in through the browser. It checks your computer to see if your computer meets the minimal requirements that the NAC sets up. And if it doesn't, then it'll quarantine you, or in this case, it will, since you're not in there in person, it will put you on another web page, and it will tell you, hey, you're missing this, this, and this. Like, download these things in order to be compliant. That's another form of NAC. Access control isn't about distrust. It's about stewardship. You protect the network the way a librarian protects rare books. Not everyone gets the same key. Layer defense and real-world integration. Small businesses. A local accounting firm implements a UTM appliance, firewall plus IDS plus contact filtering. Staff uses VPN and NAC to ensure every laptop has endpoint protection. Enterprise. A cloud provider uses a VLAN segmentations, load balancers, redundant firewall, XDR telemetry, and zero trust policies tied to Azure AD. Case study. The nonprofit network. A community nonprofit runs donations through a web portal. Initially hosted on a single server in the office, one power surge away from disaster. After a ransomware scare, they moved to a cloud-based load balance environment, add weekly vulnerability scans, implement DNS filtering, and train volunteers on phishing awareness. Result uptime, 99.9%. Stress, down 100%. Here's another case study, enterprise data center. A multinational bank builds redundant DMZs with jump servers segmenting swift transactions from retail apps. Honeynets capture early probes. IDS, IPS feed data into an XDR dashboard, and zero trust ensures even admins must re-authenticate for privileged tasks. Key takeaways. Hardware, software, and design must work together. Segmentation limits blast radius. Zero trust plus NAC equals context-aware access. Monitoring and response closes the loop. Infrastructure security isn't one product. It's an ecosystem of decisions made every day by techs, admin, and leaders. All right, here are the 4 questions. The way I do it is I read you 4 questions. I give you the 4 choices. I read them again. I give you 5 seconds, and then you try to give me the right answer. All right, question 1. A small retailer wants a firewall that can block entire categories like social media without writing individual rules. Which type fits best? A, rule-based firewall, B, policy-based firewall, C, stateless firewalls, or D, proxy firewalls? I'll read it again. A small retailer wants a firewall that can block entire categories like social media without writing individual rules. Which type fits best? A, rule-based firewall, B, policy-based firewall, C, stateless firewall, or D, proxy firewall? All right, I'll give you 5 seconds to think about it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The answer is B, policy-based firewalls. Policy-based firewalls use high-level policies instead of manual rule lists. So you can block social media sites. You can block gambling sites. You can block adult sites, right? All right, question 2. Which device acts as the intermediary to route requests from internal users to external websites hiding internal IPs? A, a forward proxy, B, a reverse proxy, C, load balancer, or D, NAC server? Which device acts as the intermediary to route requests from internal users to external websites hiding internal IPs? A, forward proxy, B, reverse proxy, C, load balancers, or D, NAC server? All right, give you 5 seconds to answer. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the answer is A, forward proxy. A forward proxy handles outbound requests on behalf of internal users. All right, we're halfway there. Are you 2 for 2? Are you ready to go 4 for 4? Let's do question 3. Zero trust architecture is built on which guiding principle? A, trust but verify. B, never trust, always verify. C, block everything by default. Or D, authenticate once and assume safe. I'll read it again. A zero trust architecture is built on which guiding principle? A, trust but verify. B, never trust, always verify. C, block everything by default. Or D, authenticate once and assume safe. Give you 5 seconds to think about it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the answer is B, never trust, always verify. Zero trust assumes compromise and requires continuous verification for every request. That's what makes it zero trust. You don't trust anybody at any time. All right, last question. Hopefully you are 3 for 3 and you're going to go 4 for 4. Let's do this. Before allowing a device to join a corporate network, the system checks antivirus status and OS patch level. Which technology performs this function? A, VPN, B, DMZ, C, network access control, or D, IDS? Before allowing a device to join a corporate network, the system checks antivirus status and OS patch level. Which technology performs this function? A, VPN, B, DMZ, C, network access control, or D, IDS? I'll give you 5 seconds to think about it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The answer is C, network access control, or NAC. NAC enforces posture assessments, granting or restricting network access based on the device level. So one thing about this is this is why I don't like bring your own devices, right? When a company allows bring your own devices to be brought into the company network, either virtually or on site, you have to build a NAC, right? Because you don't know what they have and what they don't have. So really, it's extra work for you, right? That's one of the reasons I'm not a big fan of bringing your own device. Because if you had your own device, if you had the company's devices, they're already set up, so you don't need a NAC. But it's this bring your own device stuff that you open up this potential risk, I guess, unless you don't, or you have to build a knack, right? And the companies do this. Even companies, I've seen companies where you work from home and they don't send you the device. They tell you, oh, no, use your device because you're logging into their system. But your device has to have these minimal requirements. And those minimal requirements are set up by the company. But if you don't have them, then you have to install them, OS patches or just different, whatever version of software that they use. It might be a different level of Citrix that they might use, right? They might, you may have one level of Citrix and they want you to have another. So it checks and it continuously checks, right? Every time you log in, it's continually checking your stuff, right? And, so you might have a version of Citrix that they used to use and now they want you to upgrade to a newer version or a newer version of Chrome, right? They used to use one version of Chrome and Chrome updated. So they updated their knack, right? So now you got to go in there and download the new version of Chrome. So, it's a lot of, it's some work for the user, and it kind of forces you, like, after a while, I think some companies give you a deadline, like you have until like the end of the week to upgrade. If you don't upgrade, then it kind of locks you out of the system. So it kind of forces you to update. But again, what do you do with these people who work from home? They're not really computer savvy, right? I mean, that's a problem, or potentially be a problem, right? Then you gotta call IT. They gotta go on your machine and install the software yourself or walk you through the process. That's just a lot of time wasting. Where if you just send them your computer, or I don't know. I guess sending the computer to the person's house, you're still gonna have to do the updates anyway. So because you're not in fully control of it. But still, it's just, that's why I don't like bring your own device. I'm not a big fan of it. I've never have been. I think companies, stop being cheap. Buy your own, right? And send it to the person, right? This is not cell phones. This is, back in the day, they used to have to buy your cell phone, and then people would carry two cell phones, especially the BlackBerry days, where people had two phones. But nowadays, everything's integrated into your phone. So, and that's another thing. That's another chapter for another time about checking your email from home and all that stuff. That's a totally different topic. So, all right. Infrastructure security is about more than routers and firewalls. It's about people making smart choices every day, from the smallest classroom network to the biggest data center. Thanks for tuning in to Technology Tap. Until next time, I'm Professor J. Rod, reminding you to keep tapping into technology. This has been a presentation of Little Cha-Cha Productions, art by Sarah, music by Joe Kim. We're now part of the Pod Match Network. You can follow me at TikTok at Professor J Rod, that's JROD, or you can email me at ProfessorJRod, JROD, at gmail.com.